Would you stay till the morning light? Or would you follow me? Or would you let it be? If I leave tonight, we could.
Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kayla, and if you're not new, thanks for coming back. Always happy to have you. Today, I'm super excited to share with you a new kind of video that's similar to something I've done on this channel before, but we're doing a recently read video. It's kind of like a wrap up, but not set to a specific period of time. Like I used to do monthly wrap-ups here on this channel, and it is something I'm planning on doing in 2023, but I feel like I've read a lot of books and I've vlogged a lot of my reading and I've showed you guys that reading. Some of it I haven't shown you, and these books kind of span a bigger stretch of time than just a month. I did see this kind of video on Haley and Bookland's YouTube channel. I'll have her link down below, but I got inspiration from that because she did a recently read of just like books she's been reading recently. And I also like this because we're going to talk about some books that I didn't finish or I'm still in the process of reading, but it's just kind of what I've recently been reading and enjoying. Also, you might notice if you're coming back, this isn't your first video, I did change the background. This bookcase is just like one of those cheapy Target ones, but this cube was filled with like other things. So in my videos, there weren't books, it was just like random crap. So I've moved the crap where you can't see it, and now we have some books, and I think it looks so much better. I can't remember if I said this or not, but if you're new here, I like to do a lot of books, lifestyle, some Disney just content here on this channel. So if you like anything like that or you find that interesting, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stick around. I did also want to say, if you're new to this channel, a lot of these videos or some of these books that I'm going to be talking about are in upcoming reading vlogs. I will put in the description, or I'll mention what video they're going to be in. So if you want to see more or hear more of my thoughts about those books, you can come back in a couple weeks and those videos will be up here. I am pre-filming some shorter like list videos right now for the holidays. I have a couple reading vlogs coming up that are going to be a bit longer, but they just take a bit longer to edit, so I need things to chill out a little bit before I can show you guys those videos, but those should be coming out the week of Christmas. I think that's everything, so let's jump into this recently read. And if you like this kind of video, let me know what you've been reading recently. Also, I'm also super excited to say that I've finally surpassed my Goodreads reading goal. My Goodreads link will be in my description box if you want to go be friends over on Goodreads. But I made a goal to read 30 books and I've read 34, so I'm 6 ahead of schedule. Don't have the physical copy with me, so I'm referencing my Goodreads list, and the rest I do have here in front of me. So the first book that I read recently, and I did vlog it, but I'm trying to remember, I think it was when I was sick. I think it was my sickness vlog. I recently read Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. It was her new release sometime in September or August, I want to say, of this past year. Was her novelization from the world or the universe of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And it talks about Sally stepping into her role as the queen of Halloween Town once she marries Jack. She finds another door in the woods with the holiday carved doors with a crescent moon on it, and she actually discovers this like ancient secret town that they have kind of forgotten about, and she unleashes the Sandman, which is this scary monster that goes around and steals people's dreams. Sally accidentally puts all of the people in the holiday towns like Valentine's Day Town and Christmas Town and Halloween Town to sleep, and she's the only person that is awake and therefore the only person that can stop the Sandman. You get a lot of Sally's backstory, which is kind of interesting because I never really thought about her backstory, but Shay really dives into Sally's own history and her life and develops her as a new character. Overall, I think I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I liked it because I thought it was unique and it was creative. It expanded on those worlds. It was very similar to the Twisted Tales series for me, just expanding on the world of a movie I love quite a bit. And it was very short. It went super fast, but some elements I just thought were a little bit weird. Like, we meet Sally's parents, and somehow Queen Elizabeth also gets like a cameo in this book, which was interesting. So it was a 4-star read for me. The next one I have is a genre I haven't really read a ton of this year, and that is LVOE. It has a longer title, but it's not on the cover of the book. Atticus, why do you do this to me? LVOE, Poems, Epigrams, and Aphorisms. I love Atticus. I actually also just saw that he had like a merch line in Kohl's for some reason. I was in Kohl's Christmas shopping and I was like, wait, that's the Atticus merch line. I love his work. I love the audiobooks of them as well because he reads them himself, and I think he has like the perfect voice and cadence for his writing. And he hasn't had a release in a very long time, so I was super excited when I saw this was coming out. Like, instantly bought it. I also listened to it and read it along to the audiobook, and that's a really great reading experience if you've never read Atticus before. But I wanted to read you a little bit about the title. A few years ago, I designed an engagement ring. It had 2 oval stones placed on a single gold band that together made an imperfect heart. I called the ring Coeur Parfait, which in French, I think that's how you say it, means perfect heart. The idea being that love is 2 imperfect things coming together to make something beautiful. That's why I named this book LVOE, because even though love is imperfect, we all still see the beautiful. And I just thought that was lovely. I love his work. This was another great one. There's also artwork in the published copy, which I always really appreciate. It's just such a lovely like writing experience. I do want to go back through and tab this book because I think reading poetry collections like this is a great way, and I mentioned this in my Unlock Your Storybook Heart review, that you can just find like really great reminders and like mantras. For my family book club, I listened to Finding Me, which is Viola Davis's autobiography. I don't love autobiographies and memoirs. Being a true reflection of life, I feel like those genres typically talk about really difficult or triggering concepts, and that's just not something that I typically seek to read about in my reading time. I like to kind of use reading for like a fun escapist kind of experience. So memoirs and biographies make that a little bit difficult for me, especially Viola Davis. She experienced some serious trauma in her life. I mean, all props to her to experiencing that and surviving that. But it was a difficult listen. And I find that biographies don't really keep my attention as well as other books. I think she told a great story. I'm really happy I listened to it because she read her own audiobook, and like her cadence and inflection and like her voice really came through even more, obviously, because she wrote it and then read it. So that was a great listening experience, but it wasn't my favorite. I don't love biographies, don't love memoirs, so I did give this one 3 stars. And then I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is my first read by Stephanie Garber, and I was a little bit disappointed. I feel like peak booktube, like 2016, when I started my bookstagram, Stephanie Garber and Caraval were taking over the world. And in theory, it's a really cool concept. It's about this girl who is kind of like chasing this circus kind of game that travels around this mythical world. And she has a very abusive father who's a man of power in their community, and she's trying to escape him and to go experience the games of Caraval once before she is married. So her and her sister run away, and she ends up part of this like very confusing game. She's playing in this game, and it's very dark and creepy, and a lot happens, basically, is what I gleaned from Caraval. Especially after reading Night Circus. Like, I feel like Night Circus did Circus so well that I felt like I was comparing Caraval to it a lot. I also just didn't find that like gripped me a ton. Like, I wasn't like reading because I wanted to know what was happening. Like, I was just kind of reading to finish it, which is never a great experience for me. I also feel like it's one of those books that's been so hyped for so long that I was really like, my expectations were high, and I was just kind of like, Like, it was okay. I didn't particularly like our main character. I didn't particularly like any characters. And there were aspects of the world building that, like, I feel like Stephanie set up but never fully explained or explored. Like, we're in this mythical land, but we don't get a ton of details about it. Like, I don't know, or like the hierarchy or the social norms, and it has this whole other calendar that's just like this, like, you see letters with these dates on them, but you have no idea what that means. And like I said, I think the biggest thing is I was just reading to finish it, and not because I was like, oh, I really want to know what happens. We'll not be finishing this series, I don't think. I feel like the first one wrapped up and I was like, okay, that's good. I don't need anything else. I do know that there are 2 more books in the series, but I don't think I will be reading them, unfortunately. There is something wrong with my sugar cookie latte. It's making me sad. Ugh. Next, I have the book here with me. I read Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kayla Victoria. If you've been on my channel for any length of time this year, you've probably come across a video where I've talked about Kayla Victoria. She was one of my favorite authors this year for her Kingdom of the Wicked series. So I got Stalking Jack the Ripper because I was like, I need some more Kayla Victoria writing. And I remember, again, back in 2016, 2017 booktube, Stalking Jack the Ripper was like kind of taking over. Like people were very, very intrigued by Stalking Jack the Ripper. And I don't know much about the Jack the Ripper cases, but I do like true crime things here and there. So I figured I would give it a whirl. I, of course, love Carrie's writing and her world building and all of those things. I do also really like her characters. I liked the concept that she had. It follows Audrey Rose, who is a girl living in England in the 1880s or in London during the Jack the Ripper murders, and she's also studying to be kind of like a forensic scientist, but because she's a woman of that age, it's like frowned upon, so she's studying kind of in secret. Yeah, she's trying to investigate and find Jack the Ripper, and it's actually somebody very, very close to her that she never expected. I had a couple issues with this book. Firstly, there were a lot of references to Frankenstein that I just like the end felt a little far-fetched in the Frankensteininess. I feel like Jack the Ripper is not Frankenstein, right? And the end had a very Frankenstein ending. So I was a little bit thrown off by that. It also very much reminded me of The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, to the point where I was kind of getting the books confused. Like I felt like I was like, oh, I've already read this book, because they were very, very similar to me. Even though I think Stalking Jack the Ripper came out first, and Kayla Victoria talks about Frankenstein a lot, like about the book, and how it's Audrey Rose's favorite book and all of this stuff. So it was kind of in my head, and it was throwing me off. Like it was distracting from the Stalk the Ripper aspect of the story. I also made the mistake of I read some Goodreads reviews of this book before I started reading, and I never do that. Like I never look at Goodreads reviews because it skews my reading experience. But I saw that some of my friends had read Stalking Jack the Ripper and had not rated it as highly as I thought they would, so I wanted to kind of see why. Their comments I could not stop thinking about while I was reading it. Audrey Rose is definitely like a I'm not like those other girls kind of girls, you know what I mean? Like she's like, I'm just not so delicate and flowery, and I do like simple pleasures. I'm like so much smarter than that. And it did get a little bit annoying. It did get to me just a bit. But if I hadn't read that being an annoying aspect of other people's reviews, I don't know that I would have picked up on it. Truthfully, this book made me so freaking happy to read it. I had not read any middle grade this year. That's not true. I read The Ichabod by J.K. Rowling, but I don't really think that counts. I'm not counting it because this was so much better. So I wanted to read some middle grade, and I read Pages & Co. The Book Wanderers by Anna James. This is a middle grade series about this girl Tilly who grows up in a bookstore. First of all, so jealous. And characters from her favorite books start appearing in her bookstore, and she finds she has the ability to go into these books and explore the stories. That's my dream. But Tilly learns that her family has this magical capability called book wandering. And Tilly goes on all these adventures with like Anne Shirley from Anne of Green Gables and Alice from Alice in Wonderland. And she then goes to find her mother, who's been missing for several years. I just thought this was such a delightful, magical, like whimsical read. It also, because book wandering comes from such a pure love of reading and just like an expansive imagination, which like, come on, that's what I want to be, was just such a joy to read. And I thought it moved really well. Like the plot was interesting. There was these like interesting cool villain characters and a villain arc that I really enjoyed. The setting was beautiful. It takes place in like cozy old small town England. It was just super sweet. One of the best ways I can describe this book is like the feeling you get when it's like a rainy or snowy day and you're just like cozy reading in some far off place. That's what this book felt like. That's what the setting of this book was like. And it was just honestly really, really perfect. And it was super fast, super quick. It is a series, so I do think I will be reading that one at some point as well. But I gave this 5 stars. I also read another book This, so Tilly and the Book Wanderers I read during my 24-hour readathon vlog, and this book, The Watch That Ends the Night, I also read during my 24-hour readathon vlog. And this is a novel in verse about the sinking of the Titanic. You hear from 24 different voices on the Titanic about the sailing and sinking of the Titanic. My two favorite characters were the iceberg. You hear from the iceberg, who is like this very much more of a character than I think I've ever considered, because obviously an iceberg's not a person, but like this iceberg was kind of a jerk. Like he was like, you guys suck and I'm gonna take you out to the Titanic, which was just really interesting. Like I feel like I've always blamed the people on the Titanic. I've never thought about the iceberg being like evil. So that was an interesting twist. And there was a rat named Maynard on the Titanic that you hear from, and most of the words he said was squeak. It was pretty great. But that's like not all the only reason why I liked this book a lot. I think it moved really well. It showed a lot of different experiences of the Titanic. Like the movie focuses on like a very specific experience of the Titanic sinking, whereas this shows about how the whole range of people that were on board this ship and how many stories. Like I did not realize how much the Titanic was used for immigration. Like it's touched upon in the movie, but it's a very big focus of this book. I also didn't realize it was a mail carrying ship, but you hear from like the postman and the people that were working on the Titanic. It works really well as a novel in verse. As people start to die in the sinking of the Titanic, you hear from them less and less. There are some formalistic elements that go along with what's happening in the poem that are just beautiful. They parallel each other and it's just a gorgeously written book. It moved very fast. It's a longer book. It's 430 pages, but being a novel in verse, it does move a lot faster. And I just thought it was really interesting. I thought it was really, really well done. And I gave that one 4 stars, I believe. Then I read, I don't have it with me, but Mistletoe and Mr. Right by Sarah Morgenthaler. Going into it, I did not know, but it is a sequel. It is the second book in the Moose Springs, Alaska series. But it follows this girl, Lana, who is just kind of mogul businesswoman lady who is developing property in Alaska. She's basically the commercial owner of a lot of the property in Moose Springs, Alaska, which is a very small town, close-knit town that is very anti-tourist, but a lot of their economy depends on tourists coming to Moose Springs. Lana is trying to build condominiums so people will have permanent places to come vacation and spend money in Moose Springs and try and like revitalize the economy basically. And pretty much everybody in Moose Springs hates Lana because she owns a lot of their properties, a lot of their buildings, and she's trying to bring tourists to town, and the people of Moose Springs hate tourism. But she does have some friends there along the way that she's had for a while. They come from the first book in the series, honestly, but she falls in love with Rick, who runs a local pool hall, who's very small town. He's a divorcee, and he takes care of his ex-fiance's nephew. Being a little bit of a Christmas romance going on. They decide to keep it very short term. They come from a very different worlds, so they're going to have a temporary Christmas fling, just so they're not both alone for the holidays. Of course, being a romance, may fall in love. There is that typical, we just can't be together, whatever, we must break up for the best of this, blah blah, and then they reunite in the end. Spoiler alert, like every other romance book, they have a happy ending. Besides that, it is the cutest, coziest Christmas romance ever. It is also not a spicy one, it is not a steamy one. You know that things happen, but it's not smutty in any perspective. Do with that information what you will. It's just like a very wholesome Christmas love story. There's also a moose that is known to destroy people's Christmas decorations that Lana wants to go and catch to make the people of the town like her. There's a Christmas party. There's a man who's very handsome and very well built in a too small Santa suit. A lot happens, but it's a great read. I really, really enjoyed it. It was just kind of what I have been needing and wanting, just some like cozy holiday fun reads. Personally, just have always wanted to go to Alaska. For some reason, I have a big fascination with Alaska, and I really, really I just love books set in Alaska. Also, Lana has the same last name as my boyfriend, so I was like, this kind of feels like I have to read it, right? Like a cozy Christmas read with my boyfriend's last name in Alaska around my favorite season. Like, it just all kind of made sense. I gave it 4 stars. I think I want it to be just like just a touch spicier than it was. And the fact that it was a sequel really threw me off. But overall, this book is the only one that I DNF'd, and I haven't permanently DNF'd it. We'll talk about it, but that is Spells for Lost Things by Jenna Evans Welch. Oh, Mistletoe and Mr. Right was also in my 24-hour readathon. I was supposed to read this for my last book in the 24-hour readathon, and I like it. It's a book set in Salem, and there's this girl who is basically just like ready to start her life and explore the world. And she ends up in Salem, and she has a very tough like family life. Like, she's fortunate and well off, but her family has been very broken. And there's this guy who's been in and out of foster homes his whole life, also living in Salem. They find each other, they fall in love, whole kind of thing. YA contemporary romance. I started reading it and I really liked the style of it, and I liked the concept a lot and where it was building to. I read probably like 50 pages, but after reading Mistletoe and Mr. Right, I was like, contemporary teenage romance is not really what I'm looking for. So it just doesn't feel like the right time to read it. Also takes place, I think, in fall time. That was the vibe I was getting, and it's like snowy Christmas time, so I was not, it wasn't the right time to read it. I am very much an experiential reader. I'm a seasonal reader. I read books that match the season or the setting that I'm currently in. It just enhances my reading experience. So reading this book, I just was just kind of like, this doesn't feel like the right time to read it. I do think when I get to it, I will really like it, and that's why I stopped reading it, because I didn't want to force myself through it and not enjoy it when I really potentially could. So I'm gonna hold off for a little bit, and I think even in a couple months I might be ready to read this again, but right now just didn't feel right. The last book that I've read recently is actually an audiobook. I'm trying to get back into audiobooks because I do get free audiobooks through Libro FM, and I have the Libby app, so I'm trying to like take advantage of those things. And that is I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. I think it's Ruta Sepetys. I've not read anything by Ruta Sepetys. She wrote like Salt of the Sea and Between Shades of Grey. And I'm going to look actually at the Goodreads description because I don't want to be incorrect about the true historical aspect of this book. So it is a historical fiction book set in the 1980s in communist Romania. It's about this teenager who has been kind of like stopped by the Romanian government or like security task force, and has been asked to spy and inform on an American ambassador living in Romania. And basically this teenager Christian, he just like wants to know so much more about the world, and so much information is being withheld. They can't watch TV or read newspapers or exchange goods with people with foreigners. They're very, very limited because they're living in communist country, and he just wants to get out, and he just wants to know the world and to explore. And when he's caught exchanging stamps with a smuggler, he is recruited to go spy on this ambassador. And it follows his story of how he is spying and gaining intelligence and giving it back to his government, to how a whole rebellion and overthrowing of the communist government unfolds. And it's very, very dark and sad, and just like such a gripping story because it feels very real. I feel like it's a very accurate and honest account of those times of people waiting for hours in lines for food and for clothes, and to be living in an apartment and always worried that like your light fixtures or your radios have been wiretapped and that the government is listening to you. That paranoia and anxiety and that struggle felt really, really clear in this book, and it was just like heartbreaking but also like eye-opening in a really kind of like lovely way. Like it gave you perspective. It gave me perspective on this aspect of history that I just had no idea about, but also in a kind of an inspiring note, like how much power young people can have, which is something that I've always very much believed in. And the man that reads the book, the audiobook, has such a great voice, and he pronounces these Romanian words like perfectly. It's only like a little over 300 pages. It was maybe a 4 or 5 hour audiobook, so it wasn't very long at all. But I gave this 4 stars. Overall, I gave it 4 stars. I feel like it was good to get perspective and to, like I said, hear those kind of accounts of that period of history that I'm not familiar with, and to feel empowered by people, young people. My boyfriend is proposing Chick-fil-A. I had to respond. That is everything that I've read recently. I feel like I did a lot of reading. I took a couple of days off between finishing my last job and starting my new job, and I got a lot of reading done. That's all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments what you're reading recently. What's the best thing you've read? What's something that's maybe not the best thing that you've ever read, but you've read recently? What should I be reading next? Let me know. Let me know all of it down in the comments. Like I said, I have a couple more like list videos like this, and I do have some more reading vlogs coming up, so make sure you subscribe to see all of that, or go follow me over on Instagram, where a lot of my readers get to, or a lot of my viewers get to pick what I read next. So I will see you guys in my next one. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Would you stay till the morning